So you ask, how do we protect ourselves from these bad things that can happen to us in cyberspace? Well, there are only a handful of ways of doing it. And they are not, and you really can't think of much else other that doesn't fall into one of several buckets. So the first thing is, don't use the internet or don't use a computer when you don't have to. Good example of this. There are power plants that generate electricity that are controlled by the internet, by commands sent over the internet. So these power plants are vulnerable to being hacked over the internet. Now, if you disconnect it from the internet, can they still be hacked? Yes, but it's much harder to. Okay? But why are these guys making it easier for people to hack these power plants? Okay? And the answer to that is economics. It's cheap to put the command pathways to these power plants on the internet. Okay? You don't have to build a special purpose communications infrastructure and so on. You can buy off-the-shelf hardware that'll do all the connections. It's all really cheap. Now, is this a good thing? Is it good that it's cheap? Yes. It's absolutely a good thing. But does it come with security risks? You bet. And does that, should somebody be thinking carefully about whether it's worth it? Yes. Do people think carefully enough about it? No. Okay. Second thing, you can detect. You can detect instead of not using the internet. You can do essentially knowing that you're under attack. Okay. So you have a computer at home. Haven't you ever experienced the problem where it froze? Okay. And did somebody attack your computer, or did just some lousy software foul up your computer? Well, fact of the matter is, you don't know. You might know if you were a real hacker yourself. Even hackers often don't know that. And there's a question mark. There's an element of doubt. But I got to tell you, most of the time that happens, it's some crappy software that you're using or a mistake that you made. Okay? And you weren't under attack. Nobody attacked. It's just some bug that happened on you, and your machine froze up, and you just rebooted the thing and started over again, and everything was fine. But that could have been an attack. It might have been an attack. And how do you know? So there's another domain another area where you have to pay attention. Okay? How do you know that you're under attack? Knowing that you're under attack is a big deal. Okay? Being able to recognize, even if you can't do anything about it. I'd rather know that somebody was draining my bank account rather than not know that somebody was draining my bank account. Even if I can't do anything about it, I'd rather know than not know. Okay? Because if I know, then at least I can complain to somebody. Okay, so those are two things. Third thing you can do is you can defend your computer. This is what most people think about when they talk about cybersecurity. Okay? They can put up an antivirus software or something like that checks your machine for incoming malware, bad software that will screw up your machine, and they can run checks. And turns out that those checks don't do very much. That they only protect about 40 or 50%, some percentage, but by no means 100%, not even 90%, not even 80%. Okay. But it's better than nothing. Okay? And so what I actually do is I run 2 or 3 virus protection. So I get, so there's some group that some of them that they all catch, and there's some that only one catches, and I get a little bit better protection that way. Okay? So that's good. But I'm more paranoid than most people about this, so I take that extra trouble. Does it cost me more? Yes. Does it interfere with the performance of my computer? Yes. But it's worth it to me to do that. So there are ways of protecting your own computer, okay, that you can do. And the antivirus software is just one of many measures that you can take. You can also, from the vendor side, write better software. that is more security conscious, that doesn't have the problems in it that cause security vulnerabilities that the bad guy can take advantage of. Okay? So it turns out that this is very expensive to do. To write really good software that has very few bugs in it costs a lot of money. 10, 15, 100 times as much as it does to write regular old software. Okay? And so you as the vendor, you have to say, is it worth it? Okay? Well, in some cases, it is worth it. For example, the airlines spend a lot of money on airplanes. The airplane manufacturers spend a lot of money to develop software that really works, right? I don't want ordinary software running my plane in the sky. I want something that I know works and have high confidence that works. And they really get that, and they pay through the nose for it. I mean, it's very, very expensive, but it's worth it. Okay? I mean, it's also worth it because they wouldn't get certification to fly if they didn't do that, but that's a different point. Okay? It's certainly worth it to invest that money in really critical applications. And so those are two things. There's a third thing that you can do, which is that you can configure your system in such a way that is more secure rather than less secure. So for example, use a complicated password. Don't use the word password for password. Don't use 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 as your password. Okay? Well, turns out that those two are among the most commonly used passwords. By commonly used, maybe 5 or 10% of people use them. Okay? So they give you advice about how you should have a password, what password you should do. Okay? Here's the advice they give you. Make it a password that's difficult to guess and remember, and don't write it down. Now, is this very sensible advice? Well, yes, it's good advice from the standpoint of passwords. Okay, if you're just looking at the password problem, that's a problem. Okay, I mean that's a good thing those are good rules to follow. But if you can follow that advice in any meaningful way, you're better than I am. Okay, no human being can follow all those rules and still remember. The passwords are a 50-year-old computer security technology, and we're still using it. There are many advantages, but we're still using it. Okay. But these you can configure your system to require more complicated passwords. So that might help. But of course, then there's a trade-off with security. So with operability, with usability. It makes it harder for you to use your system. Okay. So that's the defending part. The fourth bucket is recovery. What does recovery mean? And resilience. Recovery means that you give up. You don't really give up, but you try to minimize, you realize that eventually you're going to be compromised. So, when was the last time you did a backup on your files? Well, if you're like most people, it was a long time ago. Okay. And you worry about that. You worry that somehow something bad has happened, and you know this is something weird is going on, and you know you want to go back to a backup file and you want to go get it and say, oh no, I didn't do that. I didn't back the thing up. Okay. So you got be prepared for needing to recover. Okay. This is an important thing to do. Everybody should be backing up files. Anticipate being compromised and act accordingly. So for example, that might mean having a backup plan. So just recently, the U.S. Naval Academy just started again teaching its cadets how to shoot the stars, that is, to navigate by sextant. Okay. Why? Because people were getting too dependent on GPS. GPS is a computer-operated system, and if GPS goes down, these ships will have no idea where they are. Okay. That's bad. So that's the recovery part, being recovery and resilience. Okay. Then there are things that are somewhat more controversial, such as if you know a bad guy is coming after you, can you punch him out? In real life, if you were coming after me, can I punch you out? Well, if you attack me first, I can certainly punch you out. But if I punch you out and then you run away, I can't run after you. What's the right law in cyberspace? Should attackers in cyberspace be vulnerable to being punched out? That's a very interesting question. Because now you're going to do the same. You mean you're going to do the same sort of stuff to the bad guy as the bad guy did to you? Maybe that's, you can see where this goes. Okay, it's not clear you should be able to do that. Okay, but that is another way to do it. That you have to impose a cost on the bad guy, because otherwise he'll just come after you. And he'll come after you, and he'll come after you, and he won't suffer at all. He'll just, when he gets bored, he'll stop. But if he doesn't incur a cost, there's no incentive for him to stop. So how do you do this? This is a question of active defense, and it usually means doing something to the bad guy that he doesn't want you to do, and it's very controversial. And then there's the last way of doing it is to think about who the bad guys are, who your adversaries are, and you just go around and try to intimidate them. And you slap them around a bit, maybe in cyberspace, maybe not in cyberspace. Maybe you threaten them with economic sanctions or whatever. And you just establish the fact that you're king of the hill, and then nobody dares attack you. I'd leave it to you whether you think that that's feasible in today's environment, but that's a different point. I mean, that's another approach, is that you weaken the other guy, and then you theoretically make him less willing to attack you because now he's scared. So those are the ways of that's how you deal with cybersecurity, and how the ways you ask, how do you defend yourself? And that's a rough breakdown of the kinds of ways you can do it.